This video is part 4 in a series of videos on graphing in Excel 2010. This video is an introduction to line graphs and scatter plots. The data for this video I retrieved from the CU Boulder Office of Planning, Budget, and Analysis. The data covers the tuition and fee increases for in-state and out-of-state students at CU from 1980 to present day. This data I have on my spreadsheet here. From this data, I have created both a scatter plot and a line plot. The scatter plot shows an increasing trend for both the resident, non-resident, and the fees from 1980 to 2001. The line plot shows the exact same trend. The scatter plot, as you can see, uses points rather than lines by default. However, I can change this feature to show the data as lines, as well as the points, or just as lines alone. For example, I'm going to add lines to these data sets. Here you can see that the scatter plot now has lines through the sets of points, to make it easier to display the same trend that is shown on the line plot. I can change this once more to completely get rid of the points. And here you can see that the scatter plot has lines alone, no points at all, and looks almost exactly the same as the line plot. Even if you can get the two graphs to look exactly the same, there is a major difference in how Excel creates the graphs. For example, with line graphs, you need to have your x values perfectly spaced one value after another. This works very well when you're working with time values such as seconds, minutes, or years. Scatter plots, however, can have the x values skip points or be in a random order and still be able to plot it perfectly well. To demonstrate this, I have a spreadsheet here with two sets of data, or rather it's the same set of data except the second set has it randomized. So in this first set here, the x value and its associated y value are organized by the x value from smallest to largest. Sometimes the points go up a matter of 2, other times it'll be a space of nearly 40 between one point and the next. In the random list, it just takes these sets of points and randomizes them. That way, the same y value is associated with the same x value, but it no longer goes up in any particular order. For example, here you can see it goes from 802 to 68 to 2. This data I have plotted as both scattered plots and line plots. For example, the first scatter plot of the ordered data set shows this nice curve of the data going up. If I go to the scatter plot of the random list, it has the exact same curve. Excel, when using scatter plots, can tell that even though the values are out of order, when one y is associated with one x, it puts a point at that location. The line plot, however, even for the ordered list, doesn't have that nice curve going up. That's because even though this is an order here, every single tick mark on here is one step up. So the first tick mark is 2, the second tick mark is 8, since that's the way it goes. So 2 to 8 to 15, yet it only leaves a space of 1 between each value. If I go to the random list for the line plot, you can see that it jumps all over the map. And on the x-axis, there is no order here to how it's listed. It goes from 725 to 802 to 930, then down to 109. It doesn't recognize the fact that the order that they're on the spreadsheet is not the order that they need to be plotted. This may seem like a major inconvenience, but it has the benefit for line plots of being able to plot values that don't have a numerical x-axis. For example, if you have your data set up with name values instead of numerical values, then you can have that x-axis display whichever you need it to and have it plot one point right after the other. It also works very well with time, since it does have it spaced evenly by 1. Scatter plots, which work very well on plotting disorganized data sets, does not have the capability of plotting data that has a non-numerical x-axis. It needs to have that x and y axes both be numerical so we can match up the point on the graph to place it. Another major difference with these two is the line graph. When the values are randomized, since it connects all the points, it has this really choppy line. The scatter plot with the random data, even though the points are all in the same line as it is with the ordered data, if I were to change this and connect the points with the line, it would not show up the same way as it does with the ordered list. For example, this is the ordered list of values with a line going through every point. As you can see, the line goes straight through them because that is the order that it is on the spreadsheet. However, with the random list, even though the original points showed up in the same way, When it tries to graph it with lines connecting the points, it still connects them in the order that it shows on the spreadsheet, going back and forth like this between one point and the next. So for line graphs, there's a lot of pros to using a line graph. For example, when you plot a line graph, you only need to submit y values to graph, although you'll have to change the x values later. It's excellent when you're using it with a change over time. You can graph values as a continuous line. You can still use trend line with a line graph. It's easy to visualize trends in data. You can graph multiple dependent variables on the same graph, and it can be used when the x-axis contains non-numerical values, as long as they're evenly spaced. The cons of line graphs are the x values have to be evenly spaced, they must go up by a single value with each new y value, and you have to specifically format the x-axis to display more than just a count of values, which means you have to go in and manually change what the x-axis shows. With scatter plots, pros of scatter plots is that it can graph as individual points or a continuous line. The values don't have to be in order, and it's easy to visualize changes in the data. You can also graph multiple dependent variables on the same graph. A con is that you can only display axes that have numerical values, which means if you have something plotting days of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you will not be able to plot it with a scatter plot, since your x-axis will be a non-numerical axis.